1 week season.
One week season, fam. La Familia. Welcome back. It is Wake and Snake. July 7th, Lucky Sevens. We are here. Hope everybody had a wonderful 4th of July weekend. I know I did. I was busy chasing kids around, trying to keep up with things. Back on the horse, got my morning coffee, ready to wake up and draft with you guys. Again, oneweekseason.com. If you are not already a member, highly encourage you to check us out. We had our July price drop, now down to $79 for our Best Ball Plus product, $29 for our Best Ball Basics product. Plus is going to give you all the premium game theory strategy information. The Basics is going to give you the rankings, some written pieces, kind of the nuts and bolts. If you're just trying to get into the streets and figure things out, maybe if you're new to the best ball or just doing a few drafts, might make more sense at that price point for you. But if you are doing it at any level of volume, highly recommend you check us out for our Best Ball Plus product. Today, myself and my esteemed colleague, Billy Gabelman, StatATL, will be drafting on Drafters. They opened up their $3, their second version of their mini contest. They had a $2 contest that filled up towards the end of June there. And then they opened up the $3 one last week. So I believe this is the first time we'll be drafting in that contest. We'll go over the structure a little bit with that. But without further ado, bring in my good friend, Billy. How are we doing today?
Mike, I'm doing so much better now that the $3 is out. You know, I think it's been open since like July 2nd or so five days. And for those of us who had been maxed out of the $2, it's good to have that. Obviously, that closed and they opened this. It's good to have this one back for those of us who like just firing into these during the workday.
Right, for sure.
You have a good 4th, my friend?
I did. I had a very good 4th. Busy weekend. Was at the neighbors one of the days. Was out on a boat one day. Was kind of all over the place. So it's kind of nice to get back in the routine of things. I was with my daughter this morning. She had like a summer sports. She's 5 going on 6. So just a little like camp sort of deal for an hour. They teach them different sports each day. So kind of back in the swing of things. Some normalcy is nice. We've been hammered by rain. It rained like 27 of the last like 35 days in Wisconsin at some point during the day. So this week looks really nice. So excited about that. We only get, small windows of beautiful weather in Wisconsin and, locked in the winter. So it's nice once the good stuff finally hits.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you got to take advantage of it. Take advantage of it while you can. So
yeah, for sure. It looks like we've got. So you're drafting in the 4-hole here. McMahon, an OWS Best Ball Plus subscriber, is drafting in the 3-hole. We can see there it is his first draft in the $3 tournament. So good luck to McMahon getting rolling in this next one. You'll have to hit us up in the Discord. Let us know how many you got in the $2. Interested to see him draft here, and then you're at the 4-hole, and then I am picking at the 8-hole. We got the stream started once this draft had already got going a little bit. Just kind of at that time of the year where there isn't that much news. Mini camps are done. Got a couple weeks till training camp. I was out on the lake in Wisconsin this weekend. And Matt LaFleur, the Packers coach, has a house on the lake that I was out on. So, he was, rumor has it, he was out there. I may or may not have seen him for a brief period. Didn't talk shop, unfortunately, but just goes to show like they're people too, and most people have kind of shut things down. We're probably not going to get a whole lot of actionable information outside of the occasional Jonnu Smith trade, that sort of deal. So yeah, it's kind of where we're at, kind of a dead period. So started the stream a little bit deeper into the draft just so we're not, you know, looking for things to talk about instead of actually talking about actionable things.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I'm a little bummed you didn't get the lowdown on if my golden shares are ridiculous or if I need to start drafting more Reed. It's good.
Yeah, the rookies looked really good. Have looked really good in camp. Was basically the end of it was basically all I got out of this weekend. But who's not saying that about their rookies at this point? Nothing concrete depth chart wise as far as actionable information. So we'll just have to figure it out on our own, like always.
Yeah, I guess we'll let it slide this time, Mike. But next trip, I'm gonna need more info from you.
Let's see here. So I'm waiting on my pick here. Is there anything that you've seen the last couple rounds? Anyone specific situations or anything that you'd like to talk about or that you're thinking about that you're targeting, avoiding, anything like that?
Last guy off the board, like Travis Hunter, definitely I've seen fall the last, we'll say, week or two. I would guess that his ADP has probably dropped 10 spots in the last week. And I think that's, people just kind of cooling. I think that he's somebody that I kind of would expect to maybe settle into that 6th or 7th round. I kind of felt like where he was going, generally like 4th, early 5th was kind of aggressive on him.
Yeah, well, there was even early on, there was a time where he was, I think his ADP at some point was around like pick 40, like 40 to 42. So he was like almost a 3-4 turn pick, like an early 4th to mid 4th for sure. So now seeing him, he's dropped to the, he goes 63 here. His ADP is at 59. So late 5th to mid 6th round type range that we see him in here. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one just from the standpoint of, he's a guy I was very cool on to start. I was probably lower on him in my rankings early during the draft process, early May through early June at least. But essentially, I kind of had him roughly where he's going now. So it's an interesting case study in like not being too tied to I like this player, I don't like this player. I didn't like the price on Hunter. Bottom line is, number 2 overall pick. There's a lot of uncertainty, right? We don't know how he's going to be used. But at a certain point, that becomes like if he is number 2 overall pick and plays primarily wide receiver, it's almost like I don't know if you remember the Jamar Chase rookie year where there was like, it was supposedly he was struggling with drops and that was like all the negative that people were talking about him. And so he ended up dropping to like this late 5th to 6th round range as well. So not that Hunter will beat Chase, but he's a talented player and, if you can get those guys for cheaper, that's how you can kind of create these super teams.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's obviously one of the benefits of drafting. Well, we're probably, I would say, in the middle now, but drafting at different times throughout the draft cycle. I know we've been on air doing these things since I want to say mid-May, and I've just kind of seen opinions and ADPs shift over the past 6 to 8 weeks, and they will do so and continue to do so for the next 6 to 8 weeks,
Mhm.
as more news and things of that nature comes out. So yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the benefits as we talk about of drafting throughout the draft cycle is you're going to have some what will look like really poorly constructed builds based on ADP come early September when there's more news and you're like, man, I took a guy in the 18th or 19th round that's not even on a roster going into the NFL season. But then you'll have some builds that are just, as you alluded to, on paper look like they could be super teams based on ADP and like closing line value of where guys end. So.
Mhm. Yeah, one guy on your team I wanted to talk about. I alluded to the Jonnu Smith trade. I believe that happened prior to, or right prior to when we recorded last week. Am I remembering correctly?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Jalen Waddle. We've seen you got Tyreek there in the second. He jumped up so he went 21st. His ADP has been rising. It was at like 29 or 30 when the Jonnu trade happened. Already risen to 24, and seems to be continuing to rise. I would think he will land somewhere in that like 17, 18 range
Mm-hmm.
when it's all said and done. But Waddle seems like, he's still available. His ADP is still only 53. I think he might be the one that, relative to expectation, sees the biggest bump. Devon Achan, he went 10th here. He's jumped from like an ADP of 16 to 13 already, which it's only 3 spots, but percentage wise, it's a pretty big deal that he's jumping guys at that level.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting situation where, like, to me, I think Waddle might be the one who benefits the most, and um, he's seen the smallest bump of the 3.
Not in drafts. Yeah, not in drafts that I'm in.
Yeah, right.
I don't let him get past me in the 5th round. But yeah, no, I agree with you, and certainly, your draft capital on him is the cheapest of any of those 3, key guys. And there's we've seen in the past them be such a concentrated offense. So it's it's definitely a spot where I feel like I'm taking a good bit of shots.
Mhm.
I do think I think we're in lockstep. I do feel like his ADP is probably going to continue to rise over the next couple of weeks, where I would bet that he settles probably right around where I took him in the mid to latter half of the 4th round. I
Mhm.
would expect to see his ADP rise by half to a full round of where it is now. What are you thinking on that?
Yeah, and I would concur, and it just seems like it's happening slower. Um, I look at, like, they added Darren Waller, which, okay, great, but at the same time, you know, I don't know how good of a fit he is. Like, there's a video out there of him. He essentially retired. He was playing in a Giants game, and I think it was from the season before, but he ran like 2 straight inside counters, and he had to like lead block on him. And basically, he told people, like, on a podcast, like, last year when he was retired, that, like, he kind of decided right then, like, I'm done doing this stuff. And the Dolphins, McDaniel is a Shanahan disciple. When he first got there, Mike Gesicki was there.
Mm-hmm.
Basically was like, Gesicki's a talented tight end, but he's just like Waller, like athletic, tall, lean, but not really a blocker, not really good at it, and doesn't really isn't very willing to do it. So, like, I don't see him as like a big threat. Like, if people are taking shots on him in the 19th or 20th round, like, I'm not going to fault anyone for any picks, basically 17th through 20th round. Like, do what you want there. Um, but, like, in terms of like this offense, like, Tyreek and Achan kind of are who they are, and I think Waddle is like he had his worst career year last year, but he's 26 years old. Super high pedigree in terms of his draft capital, his measurables. He could be in line for a career year very easily here. To me, like I believe he was like a 2-3 turn pick last year. And he's probably set up better this year than he was last year. So realistically, if he was like a mid to late, I don't know that there's a huge difference between him and um, Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, the second half of the third round type guys.
Yeah, I think we're aligned there. And you're getting the draft discount on him. So we'll see how long that lasts. So go collect. Thanks for stopping by. Always someone I've chatted with in Discord a good bit. So appreciate you stopping by. We'll have to get you in a draft one of these days. Go collect. We try to do these. Every Monday, somewhere between 11 a.m. and noon Eastern. Schedule depending. Mike's got a couple of kids he has to juggle, and we're both working on full-time jobs. This doesn't pay the bills, but appreciate you stopping by.
Well, hopefully this year it pays the bills with the.
Hopefully this year it pays the
bills. Yeah, for sure. This is interesting. Zach Ertz went in the 10th round. You look at the rest of this guy's draft; it's pretty locked in. No, but then he goes Ertz and Hopkins.
I think he just didn't like getting sniped, how he felt of getting sniped. You took Zay Flowers 1 or 2 ahead of him. I actually took Rashad Bateman a couple picks ahead of him. So it was just like Hopkins. I'm getting my guys 10 rounds early. I'm
not taking any more chances.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let's see. Almost back to me here.
I don't have to see your board to know who I think you're taking at 137 if he's there. Nope, he's not there.
Go ahead and take Tootin, another rookie here. That's one of the things we've talked about, or I've talked about with our subscribers, is kind of trying to match up. Like I talked with Hilo last week. We did, I don't know if you had a chance to watch our YouTube shows, talked players specifically that are like better fits depending on format. Obviously, he plays primarily on Underdog. I think he's doing the Eliminator and weekly winners this year as well. But as most of what he does and his focus and research has been on Best Ball Mania. So it's just a very different animal than we're playing on drafters with the cumulative scoring. So James Conner, like that I took here in the 6th round, he's a guy that I talked about as having so much extra value, in my opinion, in this cumulative scoring format. I don't know, given his age, his injury history, it's tough to draft a guy like that with a late 5th or 6th round pick on Underdog or DraftKings, because so much of your return is going to depend on weeks 15 through 17. And obviously there's injury risk with any player, but for a player that old, it's a lot of capital to invest. But on drafters, the early season production, is equally as important. And so those early weeks, you look at my running back room so far, I've got James Conner and Brian Robinson, kind of vets locked into roles that I think will produce early and give me those usable weeks. And then Judkins and Tootin, a couple of rookies who, in my opinion, very high upside type players. I'll add Jaden Blue to that mix. who, they could have great stretches. They could, second half of the year, they could be great. They might, a lot of times NFL coaches don't just hand it to these rookies though. So, whereas on DraftKings or Underdog, having those types of players, if you just are able to get to the playoffs with them, you're kind of okay. But on Drafters, kind of mixing those archetypes is kind of an art.
Yeah, no, I think that's, one of the things we talk about a lot in Discord and in trainings is one of the bigger edges as it relates to drafters is just the fact that people aren't adjusting. A lot of folks aren't adjusting between the different formats between drafters and Underdog and DraftKings, where, week 1 counts just as much as week 17, where you have such an emphasis in the community because so much content is specific to like Best Ball Mania, which again is like half point PPR. So scoring is even different as well. I think that's one of the things that we do such a great job on, specifically like behind the paywall 1 week season stuff. And, getting into July, I don't know if you called this out because I know we're both kind of drafting here. So I know you're on the clock, but we did see a price drop for July down to $79 for the Best Ball Plus subscription. So if you're not already a member, definitely consider joining us. A lot of great community, a lot of great info behind the paywall. And, a lot of folks who have had success in the best ball streets, as they say, in different types of contests. So I'm passing it back to you because I got to figure out what I want to do here.
Yeah, we're good. I would have had to Quentin Johnston here in the 14th round. Jadon Blue, he went at 152. It's funny how based on archetypes of players, like we see the same story play out year in and year out with, so Blue was, it's kind of a deep running back class in this year's draft. But after Ashton Jeanty, there was like pre-draft, there was 12, depending on who you listen to, 12 or 10 to 14 running backs that are pretty solid prospects. So that kind of affected how the NFL draft itself went. Like the Bears, for instance, were, in the market for a running back, but they kind of kept kicking the can and never really saw. They always felt like, oh, we can get a different guy later. They ended up taking Kyle Monangai in the 7th round, a guy that they said they really liked. So maybe it worked out for them. Either way, the point kind of being Jadon Blue is a 4th round rookie, explosive player out of Texas, never really handled a full workload, but he landed in Dallas, a pretty solid offensive situation, and the running back depth chart leaves a lot to be desired, kind of. So early in that draft process, he went up to, I was seeing him drafted like in the the end of the 10th or the 11th round pretty consistently. And now you see here, I'm getting him in the 13th round. And that's just kind of the excitement comes in early. Everyone, kind of chases him up the board. And then the reality of the situation kind of sets in and these guys start to settle. So like Bayshul Tootin, Jadon Blue, those are guys who early on, everybody's all excited about them. And I wasn't really buying. I was kind of low. I actually had a couple people ask, like, why don't you like these guys? And again, it's like we talked about with Hunter. It's not that I didn't like them. It is more so.
Yeah, around their draft capital.
Yeah, the price. So now getting them in the 12th and 13th round, kind of zig when the field zags. Darren Waller, that's the earliest I've seen him go. This guy in the 10 hole he's doing things uniquely, but I mean, it's off the board, but it, basically started in the double digit rounds. His first 9 picks, are basically guys at ADP. So, if he's straying, kind of from what you would expect on those next rounds, but it doesn't, I'm not going to judge people. It's not how I would do it, but everyone can go their own way, so to speak. Let's see.
Yeah, that's I do feel like ADP certainly later on in the drafts is kind of we'll say just kind of like a construct. Like, yeah, certainly I feel like it's um, it gets closer to being like what is likely correct early on the first couple of drafts. Obviously, it shifts, but later on, certainly the back 25% from round like 15 on. To me, like there's justification for taking guys who normally go at 170 at pick 200, or the other way around. Someone who goes at 200, taking him 30 stock, like you know what I mean. Like there's just so much.
Yeah, the numbers mean far less. Yeah, for sure. And I'll let you pick here, and because a couple of guys I want to talk about. So I got 3 wide receivers my last 3 picks. Quentin Johnston, pick 161. He's a guy who we have seen him, 31.6 points in his last regular season game last year. He had 2 other games of 22 plus points. So that kind of spike week potential, impressive to me. He's kind of being forgotten about or written off for the fact that he's a third-year player who was a former first-round pick. His skill set kind of overlaps with McConkey a little bit, but also, they can, I guess, like on a down McConkey week, that's probably going to, there's a decent chance that that's a bit an upswing for Johnston, or even if McConkey misses some time, like Johnston just kind of slots right into that short area type guy. And I think we've talked about this before, but his bugaboo has kind of been drops, and that's something that can be fixed. Like you can't teach his size and speed combination. And then Jalen McMillan, I took at pick 176, which that whole Buccaneers wide receiver situation. You could see last year, from weeks 14 through 18, he had 21, 18, 17, 23, 19 points. So just ended the season red hot. So he's a guy that we know can put up strong numbers, right? And with that, he specifically is a guy that I really like from the standpoint of his skill set. He can play in the slot. He's also got some downfield threat. And so you look at kind of the perceived top 3 of Godwin coming off the injury, Evans getting older, and Egbuka, a rookie, kind of figuring things out. If any of those guys goes down, McMillan can kind of slot in perfectly. They use the receivers in versatile ways. So, I find it highly unlikely that all 3 of those guys that are kind of ahead of him make it through the season unscathed. And you also have, there's a potential with how hot he ended last season that he starts out the year ahead of Egbuka. There's a chance that Chris Godwin takes some time to kind of get right. So definitely an interesting situation there.
Yeah, I think his ADP is generally like a 14th round. I think he fell about a round to you in this draft. Yeah, he's definitely a guy that I feel like I really like taking some later round shots on for all the exact same reasons that you just alluded to. I mean, we've seen some usable, I don't want to call them spike weeks, but strong scores out of him last year in his rookie year. And yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I feel like there's upside late that you don't have offered in a lot of other guys this late. There's different types of types of players that I feel like late I like to take shots on, and guys that I just have like no interest on. He's a guy that late I really do like taking some chances on, just because he's got realistic possibility of giving you some good weeks. I went ahead and took my third quarterback. Felt like it was felt like it's worth it just with the upside I think he offers, and I already had Josh Downs and Tyler Warren on the team already. Just felt like it was a good bet to kind of lean into since I didn't take my first quarterback till the 10th round.
Yeah. Yeah, and you were able to pair Tua with the Tyreek and Waddle situation there, kind of a bet on something Hilo's talked about some, just Miami getting back to more of a downfield passing game, potentially that we saw prior to 2024. Definitely a bet that I'm liking to make a decent amount as well. Also want to touch on my 16th round pick, Diami Brown. There was some, we don't get a lot of like coach speak or notes or that sort of news type thing. But I did see Liam Cohen had a comment last week about Brown and how essentially kind of what I talked about with McMillan, just a versatile guy who he could do a lot of different things. So there's just little things that you can see, little connections that if you're paying really close attention, which is kind of my job for, so that other people don't have to. But like, so Diami Brown, he had a big game in the playoffs in the wild card round. Well, who was that game against? It was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Commanders beat the Bucs, advanced to play the Lions, who they beat as well. But who was the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that game? Liam Cohen, who is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, you read the tea leaves there, and Diami Brown, he signed a 1 year, I believe it was $10 million contract. Yeah, 1 year, $10 million contract, which is, $10 million. That's nothing to sneeze at. Obviously, it's not a long-term commitment. And then they were able to draft Hunter after that. But they jettisoned Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. There's opportunity there. Travis Hunter, who we talked about earlier, could be playing both sides of the ball. Liam Cohen specifically said like he was so impressed with Brown's skill set, how versatile he can hit you on a go route. He can, do the intermediate and short stuff, or you can throw him a screen. And his quote specifically talked about how you could throw him a screen and he can make three guys miss, which is something you can't coach. So like specifically, you look at these guys 16th to 20th round, you can tell yourself positive stories on them. But very few have, I guess, the story being told already by the coach, if that makes sense. Like,
Gadsden.
we
trying to talk you into my guy.
We can already see, like we know, like there is a plan for Diami Brown. Some of these other guys need some things to kind of break their way. But Diami Brown, he's a guy that I suspect will. I would bet right now that he will end up a 12th or 13th round pick by the time we get to mid-August, because when camps start and they have these joint practices and we start to get the reports of snap counts with the ones, that sort of thing. You get those random videos of guys connecting, in the joint practices. Then they go preseason and, the ones are out there for 15 snaps. What are, who's on the field for what percentage? I would guess that he's going to be a guy that really jumps out. And that like right now, I would say kind of that like 11th through 13th round is kind of like a dead zone for wide receivers, where like that's where the quarterback value is. That's where, I was talking to a subscriber yesterday about there's like 12 quarterbacks being drafted between the 9th and 11th rounds. Tight ends, there's a bunch of them. You've got all those like second string running backs or upside type running backs. There's not a lot of receivers there. And I think Brown, just with the way things play out, like we see some of these stories play out in similar fashions each year. Like we talked about the rookies right after the draft, they shoot up an ADP and then they kind of fall back as more casuals get into it and kind of people come back to reality a little bit. And I think Brown is a guy who, like, all the shares you can get right now in the 15, 16, 17th round are great because, he's going to be a 12 or 13th round pick, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you there. He's definitely a guy that I think we will see a several rounds jump. So, what do we've only gone 35. You want to take a look and talk through
Let's talk
McMahon's
through
roster?
McMahon, yeah. For sure. If any OWS subscribers, Best Ball Plus, if you're in the Discord and you have questions about mine or stats rosters from this draft, go ahead, shoot us some DMs or just write in the Best Ball Plus channel and ask us, why'd you do that? What your thoughts are on the roster. Go ahead, shoot it to us. We'll answer it in there. For here, though, we'll go ahead. We'll break down McMahon's roster. So McMahon has 3-6-8-3 roster, 3 quarterbacks: Jared Goff, JJ McCarthy, Jalen Milroe. His running backs are Kenneth Walker, David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Zach Charbonnet, Tyler Algier, DJ Giddens. Wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jamison Williams, Michael Pittman, Kyle Williams, Jalen Royals, Isaac Tesla, and then tight end Jake Ferguson, Colston Loveland, Chig Okonkwo. So I've been talking. Hopefully you've been looking and processing. I'll let you start it off. Do you have any specific thoughts on this?
So you and I have a difference of opinion on this, I think. The thing that stands out to me is so many week 8 buys at like every position. Which again, it's 1 week. Every week counts the same. I like the construction. I think that was one of the most common constructions of top teams in the past couple seasons. That 2-6-9-3 or 3-6-8-3, very, very common construction. I like your allocation of capital, of where you took players in terms of like quarterbacks and tight ends and things of that nature, where you allocated your capital. To me, quarterback is fine. Personally, I think you could do away with not taking Jalen Milroe at the last round, but I don't mind it because you've got such a bet on Seattle already with Walker and Charbonnet and JSN on this team already. So I certainly don't mind it. I don't know that you needed it. Running back, to me, again, you've got some early season guys with Walker, Montgomery, Aaron Jones likely to have the reins to start off the season, and then Gideon's Algier, Charbonnet, maybe later season guys. Personal preference, like I don't love handcuffing like your theoretical RB1 in Walker. Just my personal opinion. I think if you're taking a running back in the first like 4 rounds, like you're expecting him to give you a really strong season. That's just my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I don't love having your we'll say more established guys in Walker and Montgomery. Your first 2 guys both having the same bye week, kind of early to mid in the season, where guys like Gideon's or Algier may not give you any points that week just so early in the season. I don't want to be like overly critical, but I feel like that's what we're trying to do, like give really active feedback versus just saying, hey, I really like it, or good job, like just kind of that everybody gets a trophy. Wide receivers I think are awesome. Jefferson, Higgins, JSN, Jamison Williams, Pittman, like you've got good correlation with Goff, with Jamison, with Tesla, who we both know that I love. And then JJ McCarthy, both with Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson, like really strong correlation. And I like that you took shots, on Kyle Williams, like after ADP. Like I like that. Obviously, I like to slot for the correlation. I think Jalen Royals is a sneaky guy in the last couple of rounds as well. And then tight end like Ferguson, Loveland, Okonkwo, like don't mind it. Again, I don't know that I love doubling up bye weeks when you only take 3. I feel like it's different. And again, this is just more my opinion. But like if you took, I'm coming off the board. Like if you took whatever Bowers or McBride or Kittle, somebody like a more established guy, and then maybe you take like Sanders and Theo Johnson like later, and they're both week 14. Like to me, that's like totally fine because you're kind of counting on that your one stud tight end most of the season anyway. Just my take. But McMahon, like overall, like the build's not it's not horrible. You've got good construction, you've got good correlation. Just most of my concerns are around running back. And I know I just talked for like 5 minutes, but Mike, what do you see? What do you think?
Have you? I know it came out over the 4th weekend. Have you read Storyboard 4 yet?
No.
Okay, so I dive into kind of my theory there on bye weeks and kind of my thought process and approach on the overall how to handle that and kind of what it really means in general. So I will direct our subscribers there. You kind of alluded to it. I'm less concerned than I think a lot of people are. And in that, I kind of talk through why and what it means. But there is like a tipping point there as well with some things. Looking at this one specifically, it's basically you're going to be very, very the way it worked out, this roster is going to be very reliant in that week 8 on the Vikings because, 2 of your top 4 wide receivers are on bye. 3 of your top 4 running backs are on bye. So, and both your quarterbacks are on bye. So, McCarthy, Aaron Jones, Jefferson, all basically need to hit your lineup. So again, I don't think that's a horrible thing, but also like you look at week 8, the Vikings specifically, they play at the Chargers on a Thursday on a short week. So just from that standpoint, like those Thursday games just historically are like it's more likely that a guy gets dinged on Sunday and isn't cleared for Thursday, or he is limited, doesn't have the same thing. Also, the Chargers project to be I would say above average defense. I don't know about elite, but they're going to be very good. And Harbaugh generally tries to kind of control the game. So I don't know that is the type of game that will get totally out of hand. You talked about the pairing Charbonnet and Walker. I'm not totally against it. I think I've done it on a few. But the thing I don't like here is that he kind of reached on both of them. I know Walker's ADP has risen to about 45 now. But I guess I would be more inclined to do this, if you were to get Charbonnet, his ADP is 106.3, took him 7 spots above that ADP. I guess I'd be more inclined if you were able to get Walker like in the early 5th and then get Charbonnet in the 10th, where like you're getting them both at a value or at least one at a pretty sizable discount. I don't really like paying up for them. And then again, I don't like to nitpick like 20th round picks, but Jalen Milroe is actually he's a guy that I will take as my 3rd QB on some rosters because I think he has huge upside, just how he profiles as a fantasy player with the rushing upside and whatnot. But also, I think if we see him playing a lot, that could kind of nuke some of these other skill position players because Darnold's more of a pocket passer. A lot of those fantasy points, will be distributed amongst everybody. Whereas Milroe, he could kind of torpedo some things just less completions, less receptions. Maybe he's stealing rushing touchdowns from the running backs. So he's a guy specifically that I actually like on rosters that I don't really have much of a Seattle investment. The idea, Mad Sox will answer your question here. You think they're giving up on Darnold already? No, I don't think they're giving up on Darnold. What I'm saying is Milroe has the exact archetype. Like, he's Justin Fields, he's Anthony Richardson type of skill set, type of player. So that type of ceiling is very valuable in fantasy. But when does that pay off? To me, that doesn't pay off with like the Seattle offense going nuts. That pays off with Darnold gets hurt or he disappoints and they pull a Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo situation where the teams ended up basically like benching them and making them inactive so that they don't have to pay injury guarantees later. That's the scenario I could see playing out. I don't think it's likely, but that's the story for kind of how Milroe makes sense to me as a 20th round pick. He's not a guy that I'm, so again, I like the pick, but I don't know that it necessarily fits on this roster as much as I would like to.
Do you see the comment from McMahon? He said, I mainly took Milroe to get the discussion on him.
There we go. There we go.
You were successful.
Nice. Mike Langdon. Now we've revealed the Batman's identity. We know who McMahon is. So yeah, I will. I think we've gone kind of long enough here. I'm not gonna read off both of our rosters. If anyone is curious, obviously this will stay up on our YouTube and our X pages. If you're listening to this on the regular podcast feed, you can go look at that yourself. Otherwise, I think we've kind of touched on it all. Do you have anything to add, Billy?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, good deal. Well, thank you again. Reminder to all, check us out, oneweekseason.com. We have our July price drop. Things are cooking over there. Also check out Drafters. They have their $3 and their $20 tournaments. Sorry, got distracted for a second. Squirrel. They have their $3 and $20 tournaments rolling along. We've got our content kind of continuing to pump out as we gear up and get ready for training camps and the heat of summer, the heat of draft season. So I am Mike. He is Billy. Thank you for joining us. We will see you all next week.
1 week season.